So, Rebecca, I just took a picture of you. The sun was shining through the ferns in the window.
It's gorgeous.
You looked all cozy in the blanket that I
left out for me.
I love that blanket. It has a soft but not like synthetic soft. Like when you buy blankets that claim they're soft, they're synthetic soft.
Well, and then you wash them the one time and you forget and you put them in the dryer and then they're fried.
Right.
Then they're like sandpaper.
Trying to find like 100% cotton soft with that style where it's weighty but not too heavy. It has a little bit of holey in it but not too much. So if you want to go to our text on Instagram and see that picture that I took, you can do that. Let's read an email here. Listener Megan from South Dakota. She says, recently in an advanced placement or AP high school psychology course in Oklahoma, they are under investigation for an assignment handed out to students. The assignment in this AP high school psychology course in Oklahoma asked the students to place a Y or N, yes or no, next to types of sexual behavior to indicate if it was normal sexual behavior or not. Like sex with animals. Is that normal or not normal? My dogs are barking. People are calling the educators pedophiles and groomers. This was a college-level course. Just chiming in here. First off, do you know the public discourse around people accusing others of being pedophiles and groomers?
Yes, this is chronic. This is a chronic tactic against gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, drag queen people. This is like the bread and butter.
Yeah, and there will be conservatives that will throw out that accusation very freely, but it's also like a 4chan thing. It's an Elon Musk thing.
Yeah.
It's an incel thing. It's just a very quick accusation that people will throw out there. So going on, I actually looked into this case in Oklahoma to get specifics on it. So it's Waurika High School in Oklahoma. Again, an advanced placement psychology class, which is kind of cool because...
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have psychology courses when we were in high school. We certainly didn't have AP psychology courses.
A big piece of this is that to think critically is a big piece of psychology. So the idea that like you would hear just saying a term makes you bad or something, or just like putting a term on a piece of paper somehow. I mean, I guess because it's at minors are taking this class, that's part of this.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about that?
I think that's really sad that people are so against critical thinking that they just think seeing a word is exposing a teenager to harm.
Right.
I disagree with that.
So it was a worksheet asking the students to indicate whether various sexual behaviors were normal or not normal. And there were things on there like bestiality, rape fantasies, necrophilia, fetishes involving feces and urine. I'm guessing there were other things on there as well, like oral sex or intercourse or something. So someone posted the worksheet on social media, and it went viral. It was this huge internet drama. Conservatives said this was due to liberal groomers and DEI and trans inclusion and trying to turn their children gay and all that kind of bullshit.
Because that's all it takes is a single worksheet.
Right. Well, there's this assumption that if an educator is doing something, it's liberal. It's a liberal gay agenda or something.
Right. And this also brings up the bigger problem, which is how are you going to teach psychology classes in the current what would Trump want to teach in a psychology class? I don't think that we could really.
Yeah. It's really a crazy world because I don't do this anymore, but for a good 15 years, I was in charge of sex education at this one school. I would participate in this assembly of all the parents. The parents would come to this parent night, and we would describe different aspects of the curriculum and the activities that were going to occur. Because the way that I did it was that the older kids taught the younger kids. So it was a bit of a risk there, but it always went over better when the older kids taught the younger kids, 12th graders teaching ninth graders. And I supervised the whole thing, and we would have certain curriculums, but a lot of times I would go off of the regular curriculum because the regular curriculum was extremely limited. And I would ask the 12th graders what they would want to have heard in ninth grade, and a lot of it had less to do with anatomy and diseases, and had more to do with decision making and how to navigate. How to navigate relationships. And almost all the time, their general advice was wait, but don't be terrified. Wait for a while. You don't want to go quick, but don't shy away from being a sexual person as long as you feel safe and you feel ready. And also don't feel like you have to eventually have sex with people or anything. It was a very down-to-earth way of seeing things. And there would always be one or two parents that would raise concerns, and I would address them. And it wasn't hard to help these parents. Every 5 years or something, there would be one parent that would really want to talk a lot and be kind of
anxious.
Kind of like, I don't know if you watch Parks and Rec when they have those community forums.
I had a child in public school for a very long time.
Right.
I've been to many of these meetings in person,
right,
and seen those parents who are like, my one teeny tiny obscure concern, I must take everybody's time to process this ad nauseum.
Right. Well, I would pull them aside. I wouldn't have the 500 parents bogged down. But even those parents were malleable and reasonable in the end. They were usually just concerned about learning more. And a lot of the students had parents that were immigrants from mainly South Asia, which has varying levels of conservatism or sex negativity or something. But anyway, so it wasn't hard, but I can't imagine what it would be like today. I'm just going to take a guess and say that today's landscape, maybe not, maybe I'm too paranoid, but I'm just imagining that the amount of anxiety and brainwashedness of the parents would be harder to deal with. Anyway, so someone posted the worksheet. It goes viral. Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters called it completely unacceptable that this worksheet was assigned, and he launched an investigation. The school said that the assignment was from a state-approved curriculum, by the way.
Yes.
But it was like a college grade, but not that far off from where these students were. Because I would imagine an AP psychology class would at least be juniors, if not seniors. I'm not sure. But they agreed, the school itself agreed that the assignment was inappropriate for the classroom. I would imagine that it would be hard for them even if they philosophically were in support of the assignment, given the international stage that this was taking, it probably is best to just say, let's just not do that sort of thing. And I would find that to be the case with the sex ed that I was in charge of, that I wasn't an employee of the district. I wasn't a teacher in the school, but I worked alongside all of the teachers and the administrators. And my reaction was much different than theirs to parent pushback or administrator pushback or other teacher pushback. Because, the sex negativity isn't just among the families and the parents, the teachers.
Well, and there's also disagreement fear, right? Any discussion, any uncomfortableness is intolerable. Everybody is considered an expert at the same level, and therefore every opinion is valid. Like, that's just kind of the modern discourse style.
Right.
Which I have another gig that I do with Sylvia Ostafamore, the drag queen. We do a tarot reading on Instagram. And she is very well known for the amount of pushback that she has gotten for doing Drag Queen Story Hour. There was just a second follow-up story in the Seattle Times this weekend about people continuing to want to say that she's a pedophile for doing that. So this term gets thrown around a lot, and the idea that like you can just say that term to someone. You can say you are dressed up, you are playing with gender, you are reading a story to a child, you are grooming them, you are a pedophile. When it's like that's not what a pedophile is, right? But we can just throw that term around because it riles people up and it gets attention. And
yeah, it's ridiculous, and it has power because there are onlookers that are already wondering that because of propaganda and transphobia. So it wouldn't land at all, and probably wouldn't even be said if it wasn't tapping into already a element of bigotry. You know what I mean? So, it's sort of like calling an Asian a bad driver, or me. If someone just yelled out to me, "You're Asian, you're a bad driver," that hits a little bit because it's already out there. That's why these have a lot of pain and a lot of power, these kinds of accusations. Whereas you call, I don't know, well, I'm just trying to think of a group of people that you could call a pedophile. The dogs are barking because there's a plumber or a handyman is here to actually fix what the plumbers. Anyway, point is
so. I think what you're trying to say is that if you are working in schools and you are accused of having a pedophile on staff, that is the worst thing.
Well, and what I saw is that when the parents pushed back, the teachers are really good at their job. They're really good at teaching history or English or AP psychology. What they're not good at is, which makes sense, is dealing with anxious parents. They haven't been trained on that, as far as I know. And they would immediately cave to the lowest common denominator, whereas I wouldn't. Because I'm very well versed in dealing with anxious parents. That, especially back then, that was my bread and butter. And I wasn't afraid. And I wasn't beholden to anyone. I was a private contractor. So if a parent complained to me, to the superintendent, I don't give a shit. But to a history teacher that's chaperoning this event, for them, they could lose their job, or they could be transferred, or they could promotion or whatever. And so that was just another thing. So anyway, going on. So due to online bullying, the teacher reportedly resigned. The teacher was loved by many in the community, had taught for 47 years.
Oh my God.
Or maybe that's a typo. Anyway, it was either, maybe it was 27. It was a long time that the teacher, 47 sounds excessive, but it was like at least 25 years, and was a beloved person in the community, well-liked, well-respected. So the question from Megan in North Dakota: do you think it's inappropriate to teach legal minors about complex human sexual behavior as it relates to psychology? Did the assignment cross the line? Or is human sexual behavior intrinsic in the field of psychology? Could you explain why it is important for students of psychology to identify normal versus abnormal behavior? So a lot of questions there. What do you think, Rebecca?
Well, and I don't know how this worksheet was used. I mean, I'm assuming it was a beginning of a longer discussion of what is abnormal and normal, what is a large continuum of that, what is, a lot of psychology is asking really complex questions and sitting with people in really difficult decisions. Are fantasies the same as acting on desires? There are a lot of things. I wish I had had this worksheet in graduate school. I mean, one of the reasons that I'm studying sex therapy now is that it didn't get talked about in my program at all. So I would say, first off, these issues don't get talked about. And in any of my psychology classes, I don't think I ever saw a worksheet like this, but it wouldn't have been out of place. I mean, you have to discuss so many schizophrenic behaviors, Is this normal or abnormal? Let's have a conversation about it. And then you put the cultural component on top of that. I think I've told this story at Asian Counseling and Referral Service. What would be inappropriate footwear in any other culture in the winter in Seattle was completely appropriate. So we're talking about wearing flip-flops in winter Like, is that a sign of mental illness or is that culturally appropriate, right? Like, these discussions are complex and interesting. And in the modern landscape, I imagine they're terrifying because there are some things that have hard answers, like bestiality, but there are other things that have soft answers, like rape fantasies are completely considered normal and allowable. And I heard one therapist say, anything that you have in your own head is okay.
Right. So I don't know what the assignment was used for, but I would imagine that that's what it is that it was a jumping off point to have a discussion and to, one, talk about what is quote unquote normal and abnormal, but also what is okay or moral versus immoral. And having sex with an animal that cannot provide consent, most people would agree is immoral. As you were saying, to have a thought that never takes action could be considered by many to be not immoral, right? Even if it is abnormal. But maybe it's not so abnormal. When you look at the research shows that 50% of people, from my memory, have occasional rape fantasies.
Yeah, I mean, there's I have now read so much on normalizing rape fantasies and explaining them, especially across ethnicity in cultures where rape has really been used against people. Why would they continue to have rape fantasies, and really explaining desire and power and control? And in your fantasy, you're in complete control. You pick the kind of person that's approaching you. You pick the location. You pick the amount of time. Like, there's a reason that this is allowed to be a fantasy. You're in complete control.
Yeah. And the fantasy is to be both the rapey and the raper. And there's different levels to it. There's the romance novel version of rape where she really wants to, but she's saying no verbally, that kind of thing.
Do you know the term bodice ripper?
Yeah. Have you ever worn a bodice?
I have worn corsets.
Is that a bodice? Is that the same as
I think it is. A bodice is a loose corset. When I worked in New York, I worked in a fetish clothing store, and I have tied a lot of corsets. I'm actually really good at tying corsets. It would be hard to rip a corset, though, now that I think about it. There's a lot of boning. But that's a lot of... Bridgerton is bodice ripping, right? Like,
there's boning in bodices?
There's boning in corsets.
Wow, so many innuendos there.
Yes.
To answer the question specifically, do I think it's inappropriate to teach minors about complex human sexual behavior as it relates to psychology? I would say generally no.
And not just any student is ending up in that class. I mean, how do you end up in an AP psychology class?
Plus, do you think they don't know about bestiality?
Right. I mean, at this point, is there any kid that doesn't know anything
about
You're
not showing pictures or videos.
No, you're just bringing up the concept.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the scariest thing to me about the modern times. Is like you bring up the concept and people are like,
Yeah. It's exactly the same as abstinence only. If you even acknowledge sex to minors, it gives this impression that you're recommending it or you're saying, let's do it right now in the classroom. It's just this ridiculous notion. Would you, as a parent or a society, rather have a respected teacher talk about these kinds of things with students than TikTok talking to these students or 4chan talking with these kids? It's out there, and who would you rather have talking? Anyway, does the assignment cross the line? Not in my eyes, but that's just my sense of things. Now, you're not asking this question, Megan, but does a parent have the right to chime in and say, I don't think that I want my kid to participate in that? Generally speaking, yes. I think that parents have the right to influence those kinds of things within reason. So if one culture, one parent, one family is particularly in that direction, then I think that's okay. They shouldn't be calling people pedophiles and groomers, and they shouldn't be ruining everything for everyone else, but they could certainly chime in.
An important conversation to be able to have with your kid, that you're learning really advanced concepts here, and what do you think about those concepts? I mean, this is like, I would hope if you have the type of child who would take an AP psychology class, I would hope that you could have those kinds of conversations with that kid who already is an investigative learner.
Yeah.
Like that is not your average kid that wants to take that class.
Yeah. All right. Well, in lieu of me making a boning joke, let's take a break.
I want to hear your boning
joke.
I want to put you in a corset more than anything.
Yeah.
You have such a... We would not get far. You have like such a like solid frame. I can't imagine. But I think Stacy would enjoy it.
Well, don't these devices turn solid frames into more hourglass?
Yeah. So the idea is if you tie a corset correctly, this is a lesson for everyone. The bow in the corset should be at the center, not at the bottom or the top, because it's like a fulcrum. You want the tightness in the middle. And
so like right under the ribs kind of thing?
Yeah, it depends on your body. We would really have to do some corset. When I sold corsets, I mean, we had hundreds of available ones because everybody's body is so different. Going from a waist cincher to like a full, almost like a dress. So your body, we would maybe start with a waist cincher for you.
It's funny seeing you scan my torso.
I know. I'm like looking at you totally differently. But this is what I did at work. You know, people would come in and say like, I want a cat suit. And I would look at them and I'd be like, not with your body. We're not finding you a cat suit. But I can construct you an amazing outfit out of 2 or 3 pieces that's going to look great on you. But, you know, that's why I love that job, because you just got to make people... You didn't necessarily complete the fantasy they came in with, but you definitely made them look really good by the time they left.
Sounds like a fun job.
It was fun.
Kind of like a precursor to being a therapist in a way.
Yes.
All right, let's take a break.
Okay.
All right, anonymous middle tier patron, she says, I very much appreciate all that you do. I was prompted to write after an episode with Rebecca. I love her.
Oh, good.
She discussed her sex therapy training, and my parasocial relationship with both of you has created a lot of trust, and I wish I could have either of you as my therapist. Thank you so much for what you do. I am a 47-year-old female. I think I am a candidate for sex therapy, and I am finally at a place in life that I would like to seek it. I have a history of sexual abuse I have a history of sexual abuse that has led to dysfunctional patterns in my adult life. Things like exhibiting obsession with high drama, non-reciprocal, unavailable people. I would describe myself as hypersexual, but yet extremely disconnected from my sexuality to the point where I feel like I dissociate when I am engaged in sex. And I compartmentalize these experiences from my regular life. Since I have been single for so long, my primary sexual experiences are currently through fantasy and porn, which I have an excessive amount of shame around. I engage in porn and masturbation and then really feel gross and ashamed afterwards. Additionally, the type of porn I gravitate towards is kind of weird, like insect porn, rape, coercion, etc. Things I would never dream of engaging in real life. I tend to be super judgmental about kink, poly, BDSM, etc., and how common and mainstream it is these days, yet I engage with taboo porn. What's up with that?
Good self-analysis, though.
I know that I need a sex therapist. I have a regular therapist, but in keeping with my compartmentalization, I want to talk to a separate professional about this, mainly due to the shame and discomfort with the issue. Where do I start in seeking a sex therapist? What should I look for in a sex therapist? What do you think, Rebecca?
So ASEC, the American Association of Sex Therapists and Educators. Am I saying that right? I don't even know.
It's all those words.
It's all those words in some kind of order.
Yeah.
So they have a website that lists people, and a lot of people I've noticed have kind of, this is what Carol Stanley did, like kind of have like a training institute. So you may have a top person who's certified and they may be training other people. So you might not get the person on the list, but you might get someone who's in training. I think most sex therapists could address what you're looking at here. But what I've learned in my training is that shame is a huge part of this. unraveling the shame, tolerating your desires. We have been so distanced from allowing ourselves to feel integrated with what we want. So I was going to plug this show anyways, but it seems like a perfect time. So I've been watching Dying for Sex with Michelle Williams. I finished it. It's based on a podcast called Dying for Sex. And it's a woman who has stage 4 breast cancer that's spread throughout her body. And she begins this sexual exploration where she divorces her husband and begins what began as random encounters. Some of them go longer, but she meets people that have all kinds of kinks and really gets into exploring it with them. And the show is really beautiful in talking about consent. In the show, she's never had an orgasm with another person. And that becomes one of her medical treatment goals, which is really sweet. And a goal she has for herself. And eventually, towards the end of the show, she finds a partner that she's able to do that with. But it takes a lot to admit what you want. I've noticed the biggest change for me is just saying that I'm in sex therapy training. People will say things to me that they've never said before, and people will receive information from me in a different level. So yeah, I would start with going, and I've seen there's lots of different types of sex therapists. So finding someone who really works with individuals. There's people who just work with couples, and there's Christian sex therapists out there. And, there's a lot of kind of flavors of it. So really checking a couple people out. I think this is, where telehealth is amazing. So now if you're not in a big city, you still have access to multiple people. And I've also noticed that some sex therapists are certified in multiple states. I think for this reason that it's harder to find a sex therapist.
So, Rebecca, changing the subject, there is a gift from a fan.
Oh my God. I want to say whoever sent me that blue ducky, it sits right by my bed and I look at it all the time. Look at this cute handmade card.
So this is from
Oh my God, it's a tarot
Layla
deck.
from Canada. She says, Rebecca, I found this tarot set. Mm-hmm. I found it delightful, and I hope it can be...
It's wood? It's so heavy. Oh my God.
I hope it can be inspirational for you.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much for your beautiful cameo. When I was looking for some words of support surrounding my birth trauma and being a parent of small children. So
Oh my God.
that looks like an ancient
So
deck.
these are like engraved wood. This is just the major arcana. These are not based on the Rider-Waite deck. There's no description with it. It just says...
Each card is a little wood slab.
It's like engraved wood. It's exquisite. Heavy on the medieval imagery, which I'm a frickin' sucker for. These are so gorgeous. I'm kind of on the verge of tears. This is such a generous gift. These are really, really magical. Boy, I will treasure these always. And when I teach, it's so fun to show different decks. And this one is just exceptional. Thank you, dear listener.
All right.
Oh my
Another
God.
email.
Wait, hold on. I got to look through them all.
Well, you can just listen.
Okay.
Long-term annual patron Kristen. She says, Hi, Dr. Kirk and Rebecca. Rebecca, I am sorry to hear about your diabetes diagnosis. I hope you are doing okay. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 7 and have had it for 24 years now. Since you are newly diagnosed, I am wondering about your thoughts about the stigma, jokes, and rude comments people will make surrounding diabetes. Recently at a party, a friend of a friend handed someone a drink and said, "Here's your cup of diabetes." The friend, knowing I am diabetic, nervously hushed him and glanced in my direction. I have heard these things thousands of times. I normally laugh off the rude comments, but every once in a while I think to myself, why are we like this? Having type 1 diabetes is so mentally, emotionally, and physically taxing. It can be life-threatening and dangerous at times. I love finding humor in things, but I am but I just am not sure how we got to the point where we make diabetes itself funny. Let me know your thoughts. And I'm sending you patience and a sense of humor from one non-working pancreas to another.
That's so funny because that's people are like, diabetes? Like, how did you get diabetes at 53? And I was like, my pancreas gave out. Like, guess what? Your pancreas is not going to last forever. So yeah,
Well, there's a PS, which is funny.
Okay.
PS, I heard turmeric can help with diabetes, but not as well as cinnamon. And just wait until you hear about all the fucking cinnamon. I included the fucking. End of email, smiley face.
Oh, God. Yeah, so I think people who joke about diabetes don't understand that it's like I will say fucking, it's a full-time fucking job. If you can't eat the normal American diet, like I'm about to go to a conference for 4 days, and the idea of the conference breakfast buffet has me so stressed out. Like if you handed me a Yoplait with 40 grams of sugar in it and a Danish, I would be out for the rest of the day. I would be having shakes in 30 minutes at this point. So, when you have to consider every single food choice you make, and she's got type 1, so I don't know if she's doing insulin on top of that. I don't have to do insulin yet. Yeah, I think we make fun of things that we don't understand. I mean, I don't know if anyone would say, here's a cup of cancer. Maybe a really morose person would say that to someone else.
Well, we used to call cigarettes cancer sticks.
Yeah, but that's you wouldn't offer. I don't know. Anyways, I think we make fun of things that we don't understand. We make fun of things that don't impact us personally.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to everybody that I'm doing really well. I'm on diabetes journey. I'm not doing my fantasy well, so I got diagnosed at an A1C of 7.8, which is solidly low diabetic. I know some people's numbers are like way out of the park. I had this fantasy that I could go to non-diabetic numbers, but I've tested twice in the last. You can only test your A1C every 3 months. I'm not doing a glucose monitor or blood strips because it just doesn't work for me. You have to get the timing so right. But I am currently at 6.3. And I actually posted on Facebook recently that I was feeling really down and I'm not exercising enough and like I'm not doing well enough. And everybody wrote and was like, you're doing amazing. 6.3 is like great. And I was like, oh, I'm doing great. And I will be diabetic for the rest of my life, and that's okay. And with my family history, I'm not going to get a number like 4.8 like some people can. So it is a constant medical battle. And I hear you. Like the hardest thing for me is when I'm out to eat with someone and they get a dessert and they're like, I want to share this with you. And I'm like, I can have a bite or two. And they get all pouty. And I'm like, I don't think you know what you're asking of me. Like, I don't want to get the shakes and have to lie in bed for 12 hours just because I shared a piece of cake with you.
Yeah,
like,
I don't understand that. I mean, as someone that comes from a Japanese family, I have been pressured to eat my entire life by my aunties and even my uncles and my parents and grandparents and everybody. I was just like, you need to be eating more. Here's some food. I mean, I'll just be hanging out with my family and this bag of Fritos will just show up in front of me. And my dad will just be like, oh, you look a little peckish. Would you like some Fritos? Like he'll just pull out these snacks from his pocket. And it's an act of love. And if you accept it, it is you're giving the gift by accepting the gift, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
So I get that, but I also do not fucking understand why people are so uptight about other people not eating something if they're not into it. Like, I get the desire to please someone or to have someone appreciate food or something like that, but if someone's just not in the mood, then
let it fucking go, especially if there's a medical issue at hand, you know? Yeah. So I understand both sides, but in my family anyway, there's definitely like a line there where if someone were to say, oh, I'm actually, I have a condition, or I'm just full, sometimes I have to be pretty adamant and say, oh, no, I couldn't, I would burst, because it'll usually get to that point that I would burst if I ate anymore. And, people don't get up they don't get upset at me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just don't understand what that is. It's like, have a little empathy.
I think it's this part about like, join me or we're together in this. I mean, it's really interesting with drinking now that I have to tell people like, I can't even drink. If I drink a Coke, like I have to factor in that I will pee every hour for the next 5 hours. So like, if that's part, like, so for me, it's going to the bathroom multiple times. Like if I go out to eat at a restaurant, the chance that I'm going to eat something that's going to trigger me. So it's like embarrassing. Like I have to go to the bathroom when we arrive, and then I have to go to the bathroom before I leave. And there's this just like, do I describe this to people? Can they kind of roll with it? I'm going to the bathroom way more than anyone else, but it's like,
who can't roll with that?
I feel shy.
I wouldn't. People, I don't. I'm an older man, and I go to the bathroom a lot more often than I did before, and I don't give a fuck if people are judging me or laughing. I don't give a fuck. I have to go to the bathroom. Fuck you.
Yeah, but there's things like I can't drink orange juice anymore. Like I'll literally break into sweats if there's too much sugar in it. And it's not turmeric, but I have this.
Apple cider vinegar?
No.
Cinnamon?
It's sodas, and they're called Good Idea, and they're full of chromium and something else. And I really am managing my blood sugar by drinking one before I go out. And they only sell them through the mail. And I'm actually thinking about this conference that I'm going to. So you have to get 24, but I'm only going to be at this conference for 5 days. So it's like, do I just order a case and fucking leave them? Because
right.
I'm going to be in Las Vegas. I'm going to be needing to consume so much liquid. And if I drink that much club soda, I'm peeing every 30 minutes. So there's this idea that like the normal world isn't going to have what I need.
Right.
And how do I take care of myself out and about?
I'm sure there's like a subreddit for diabetes that.
Yeah. I just have to look into like, how do I time the shipping?
Yeah, there's got to be some system that diabetic people.
And I have to call the hotel and say, can I ship this product to you? It might not arrive on the day that I arrive, but can you just hold it?
Yeah.
Because I need it as a diabetic person. Like in Las Vegas, it's going to be 110 degrees. Yeah, so it's a trip. It's just so anybody who's not diabetic out there understands, it is so much work, and it impacts my social life so much. And the kind of joy of going out to eat is like gone.
Yeah.
Going out to eat is fucking terrifying. I'm researching Las Vegas restaurants like crazy. Like, what can I eat? People are sending me like, I went to Las Vegas and I had this fun thing. And it's like a milkshake with a piece of cake on top with the straw through the cake. And I'm like, don't even get that thing near me.
Well, and you have a huge sweet tooth.
I love sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you've said that you
chocolate.
Are kind of addicted.
Yeah.
Like you don't use that word lightly.
No. Chocolate is my big.
Yeah.
And I do eat. I have these numbers eating 2 squares of chocolate a day, but like I used to eat a chocolate bar a day.
Yeah.
But just so everyone understands my story, like diabetes runs on both sides of my family. I got my full genome done because I was like, what the fuck? And I have the childhood diabetes marker. It didn't flag for me as a child, but I was like, oh, I've been a ticking time bomb for a really, really long time. But yeah, I thank you, pancreatic sufferer, for writing in.
Kristen,
thank you for writing in, Kristen. It's a trip. I had no idea. And everybody really focuses on insulin. Are you taking insulin? Are you doing that? And I don't without even doing that part, it's so much work. I can't believe the amount of work if you were doing insulin as well, on top of managing your food, your amount of exercise, getting enough rest, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep. And then, something will happen. So like here we are in the Trump era. So stress is a huge thing for my blood sugar to spike. So something incredibly stressful will happen and I'll feel myself getting the shakes. And it's like, oh, fuck. And my only option is to go lie down, and drink a lot of water and just wait for it to pass. So, yeah. Stay strong.
Well, let's take a break. When we get back,
More
some
sugar.
more emails.
No more sugar. No.
All right. This is an email about artist clinicians, Rebecca. Anonymous patron. She writes, I really appreciated you talking about being a musician on the podcast. As an early career clinician, I often have a lot of insecurity about being a working artist and a therapist. I live in a small city and regularly show visual art and publish creative writing. More importantly, I am in several rock and pop bands that perform locally. When I take time off work, it is usually because one of my bands is going on tour. I feel sheepish about revealing this to clients and coworkers. And sometimes I literally have stress dreams about clients unknowingly showing up at one of my performances or hearing me on the radio. I don't want to be taken any less seriously as a mental health provider just because I have other jobs and passions. I think this is all amplified by the fact that I am young and just starting out in the field. I am so curious to hear your thoughts on this, and I'm wondering if you have any advice for providers who have multiple public-facing jobs. End of email. Rebecca?
Yeah, I think especially if you're an artist, it's so important to continue to do that, to stay alive and vital inside. It is exposing, but there is a long history of clinicians making art. I'm thinking Jung was famous for his artwork. I'm thinking of Yalom's writing, that he wrote a mystery and some other fiction work.
Screenplays or novels that were turned into movies. When Nietzsche Wept.
On the Couch is such a fantastic mystery. It's so great.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are actual people who have well-rounded lives and hobbies, and I'm thinking of therapists I know who were very active in Taekwondo and went to competitions, and that was really important to them. So yeah, you will be more than one thing, and some clients aren't going to be able to handle that, but most clients will love that you have a life. And then when you say to them, what are you doing for stress release? What are you doing for self-care? I feel like my clients take me more seriously knowing that I'm actually doing it.
Yeah. Early career was in the same boat. I was in bands and performing out and about before, during, and after graduate school. But it was before the internet, so the chance of a client finding out was pretty low. They would have to randomly show up at one of my gigs that only 3 people attended anyway. So that was unlikely. But I never slowed down, and you could very much say that this podcast for 17 years is kind of like that, maybe even more so, because it's so out there and so long form. And whereas if you're performing on stage for a client to see you, it's not it's artistic, it's a performance, it's not necessarily very self-revealing. I mean, it's self-revealing in a sense, right? But it's not like disclosing your childhood kind of a thing.
And I think of someone like Ned Farley, who directed plays for decades.
Right. So maybe it helps, as Rebecca is pointing out, anonymous patron, that there's a long tradition not only among the greats, but even among us small people that have been doing the both of those things, and it never. I mean, has it ever impacted you?
No.
Your work with it's never impacted. I mean, if
it's
it
only
affects
been
things.
positive. I mean, people will say, I saw your paintings out and they touched me in this way or that way. I listened to the podcast, it touched me in this way or that way, or I disagree with something you said on the podcast, and we have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
Like it is a myth that we can somehow be a blank slate. That is a myth of rich white male therapists from the 50s.
And just an outdated notion when there was no internet, right? Today, it's just really hard to be completely non-public, right? I mean, some people are, of course. But the thing to do, though, is to do a systematic evaluation of what your clients could come across and how that could affect them. Like if you have a song about psychology or about what it's like to be a therapist or lyrics that could be interpreted that way, then you want to just take a look at that. It doesn't mean you can't do that, but assume that your clients will see every performance and listen to every song 10 times, even though they won't. But assume that that's what I've always done, and that's what you're supposed to do, is just assume that every client will see everything that is publicly available. And do you think that there's enough of a risk or any risk that would justify scaling back or modifying things in some way? So just go through that. Having said that, there's a pretty good chance that the vast majority of your clients won't know or care.
And also, many of our clients are so impacted by their own clinical issues that they don't have time to search us or...
Right.
Yeah.
Or if they did, once they sit down in your office, they're so focused on what they want to talk about that the Googling that they did a couple days ago doesn't really affect them very much. Now, for some clients, they're more susceptible to this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I remember when the internet first happened, somebody that was already projected all over me more because...
A client?
Yeah. And it was just one more clinical issue. It wasn't anything that I had done. It was already a pattern that they had, that they felt that they somehow knew something about me. I mean, really what they were projecting had nothing to do with me and everything to do with them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. The other part of it, anonymous patron, that I think you're talking about is you are a novice therapist and already feel like an imposter. And if people saw you, I don't know, being anything other than the buttoned up professional that you think you have to be, then they're going to think that you're a joke or an imposter. And that's just a part of being a novice clinician. There's no way around that feeling. And just keep progressing and developing, and eventually that sense of being out of your element will go away.
And also, the average client of mine is so worried about me at this point. Like, you're listening to all of this every day. I'm worried about you. Are you having fun? Are you okay? You look tired. Like, I have one client, something weird. Oh, I'm allergic to witch hazel, which is in Seattle, is like blooming all over the place. And so I was like sniffling and apologizing for having allergies. And she was like, why are you here? Why aren't you home? And I was like, if you had allergies, you would continue to work. Like, I can feel how much people are like afraid that I am taxed right now. And I have to explain, like, my life is full and beautiful out of here. I have a really great support system. I still do what I love. I'm okay.
Yeah.
More than, I would say more than anything, my clients want me to have a full life outside of the sessions.
Right. Another email, one more. Anonymous annual highest tier patron.
Thank you, by the way.
She says, hi, Becca and Kirk. She calls you Becca.
That's okay.
But that's what people call you close to you.
Yes. Maybe she knows me.
Right. No, she doesn't. I know who it is. She knows you on the podcast. Hi, Becca and Kirk. After years of struggling with infertility, I am pregnant.
Ugh,
roaring applause. My immediate worries are about my baby's health. Mm-hmm. The battery of tests and monitoring during pregnancy can find something concerning at any point. So I'm staying hopeful but alert.
And the amount that they can tell you now, even in the 21 years from when I was pregnant, it is wild the amount of content that you can know. And if I don't know what your infertility journey was like, but like they can give you evaluations on the blast cysts. Is that what they're called?
Oh, is it blastocyst?
Anyways, you can know so much about a collection of cells even before it is, and you can decide which one you want implanted in you. So I have gone through this with clients now. The amount of information is overwhelming.
Yeah.
I mean, you used to like know you were pregnant at 2 months, and now clearly if you've gone through infertility, you've been making decisions and doing things for a very long time.
Going on. My future worries are about raising my baby with my local family, which I'm married to. So her in-laws, I believe. I am politically very left, while my local family is highly conservative, bigoted, and anti-science. She's saying local family. I wonder.
I think she means like as opposed to, family that's close by that would probably see the child more often than.
I don't connect with them because they hold such morally abhorrent views, so I mostly avoid gathering with them whenever I can. My spouse supports me on this. But the thought of my half-brown baby being around them gives me a visceral bad feeling. It feels like I'm putting my baby in harm's way by letting it be around people with such hateful ideologies. At the same time, I know they will be a part of my baby's life, as I can't move away from them. And I know they will want to help with childcare, which will be super rude to decline. What are your thoughts on this? Am I fucked? End of email. She always says end of email. So end of email. Rebecca, what do you think? Is she fucked?
I don't know if he's fucked. I know that raising kids is really, really hard and you have to make a ton of decisions, and sometimes you have to leave your baby with someone that's not your favorite because that's the childcare that you have at the time. Know that kids are resilient, and unfortunately kids have been surviving racist family members for many, many centuries at this point. And that your kid will be okay. These situations are not ideal. You don't get to choose your family. You don't get to choose who's close to you. You will probably need the care from time to time. That's always such a hard moment. But, when you are a parent, you just do what you can at the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. There's a way, especially now, that there's this sense that like every moment needs to be perfect, and that's just not true.
Right.
We wouldn't survive.
Right. Not only parents today, but particularly before your first child, particularly if you've been fighting to have that
yes,
child. Right.
That baby is so precious and it's so intense. Yeah. And
think of your bigoted local family
they
members.
They raised you, and you're.
Well, not only that, but think about how, as a child, we don't want children to have too much sanitation because it ruins their antibody opportunities. So,
right, the healthiest children grow up on farms surrounded by every kind of bacteria imaginable.
Right. And perhaps healthy children grow up with a dash of occasional bigotry and problems. Not harmful, constant, round the clock, but...
And I should say my grandmother's second husband was so awful, sexist, racist. And standing up to him in 5th grade was some of my early foundational...
Yeah. And for me, growing up in a 99.9%, I'm not even joking, white community, I, as a half Asian person, was basically considered a black person in my society and was treated that way pretty much constantly. And I was particularly browner then because I was constantly in the sun as a child. So it was more noticeable, I guess. But I think, or at least I'm just putting a positive spin on it, I think it gave me a critical eye on society that set me up to question a lot of bullshit,
That's just an idea. And since I can't conform racially, I've never really been a conformist, particularly. I mean, I'm not particularly nonconformist, but I'm not particularly.
So put you in that corset, you're going to be nonconformist.
Right. Yeah. So for a child to go through a little bit of that. The other thing I'll say is there are two types of conservatives in my experience, if I can be so bold to just categorize that. One is the true bigot, conservative, brainwashed, problematic conservatives. There are others who parrot the Fox News bullet points. They definitely vote MAGA. They listen to the podcasts along those lines. But when they actually interact with humans in their real world, like your own child, then they completely shift. It's almost compartmentalized, to use the word of the previous patron, and they don't think of your brown kid as the same sort of brown that they're railing about the caravans that are coming over the border or the brown people that are supposedly erasing white people from America. Like, they don't necessarily equate the two.
Right. And racism is extremely complicated. So with the Cory Booker filibuster, is that what it's called? Where he spoke for 26 hours?
Yeah, I don't think it was technically a filibuster, but essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Bless his heart for doing that. So the other person before that who held the record was Storm Thurmond, who was a senator, I don't remember from where, one of the most famous racists in America. Like, just to his core, publicly, that's white
Right. So
segregationist.
for a person of color politician to beat that record was particularly poignant.
Yes. Storm Thurmond had a child with a black woman, and this was only revealed after his death. So it's like, okay, what is really happening here? You say you have no contact with black people. You say all these horrible things, and yet you have a child with a black woman, right? So, like, people can say one thing and do another.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say.
Right. And some people fit it into one narrative, which is possible, that it was all just a part of the superiority thing for him to have sex with a woman or coerce her or to put her in that position or something like that, maybe even assault her. And certainly that can be the case. But another possibility is that the public-facing statements were held as genuine by this individual, but they were more complicated than that. And it is often the case. You'll see this sort of thing. Some of the most racist people in our country have a lot more, on average, interactions that one would consider to be not infused with racism with people of other races. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, it is very, this stuff is really interesting. And I will say my experience is you put a baby in front of most people and they tend to love that baby. You put a teenager in front of most people, I don't know if they'll be able to hold it together as the kid ages.
And I guess I hadn't thought about this, but my family had this happen. My mom's parents were typical people born in the United States in the 1910s and held all of those racist points of view. And when my mom in the late 50s, early 60s started to have interest in my dad as a Japanese, not only as a Japanese American, but as someone that lived literally down by the train tracks in Spokane. Uptown girl, she literally lived uptown, up the hill, South Hill, and he lived downtown by the working class people. And so, I mean, they literally built I-90 through just like half a block away. They just erased entire blocks. You know what I mean? When they would do that sort of thing, like port neighborhoods are the ones that get decimated. And so anyway, so my white grandparents would
do everything in their power to prevent my mom from dating my dad. And my parents had to date secretly for years, and then they eloped and da-da-da. And my grandfather was even violent with my mom. And my grandmother was cruel to my mom. So everything looked like this would be a disaster for us kids, right? Us abominations, us kids that are mixed race. How horrible, right? Well, once marriage and children came along, it was at least observed by a lot of people in the extended family that my grandparents not only accepted and loved my father and us kids, but actually preferred us over the cousins and other in-laws. When the five, my grandparents had 5 kids, and they had this summer ranch place on Hayden Lake, which is just around the corner from the KKK.
Coeur d'Alene.
Right around the corner from the KKK headquarters. One could say it's like the national headquarters, or it was anyway. And there was an A-frame building and then a barn, a giant barn, and then a little house, kind of cabin place. And in the cabin place, there were 2 bedrooms. So you had one bedroom with my grandparents, and they could give the other bedroom to one of the 5 kids. Well, my mom and dad got that room, and all the other kids had to sleep in this trailer or the barn. I don't know if that's favoritism. I don't know what was going on there. But the point is that they might surprise you. It might even be the antidote to the bigotry to have this happen to them, because love conquers all.
Right. Most people fear what they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that does it for that episode,
Thanks, everybody.
in which I tried to think of a good, appropriate joke about boning and just couldn't.
Corsets. You have a lot of time, though. We can play with this joke for the rest of our lives.
Check in with me next time. Maybe I'll try to
Keep working on it. Keep working.
Yeah.
I can see your brain. I can see your eyes are darting back and forth. Working
turmeric in there.
Turmeric, corsets,
Boning,
tie you up.
I said the word torso earlier. There's kind
torso.
of a,
That's a very strange word, especially for men.
Kind of a comedic word.
Women think of their torsos, I think, differently than men do.
Okay.
Midriff.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna keep working on this.
Yeah. And everyone out there, take care of yourself, and
maybe take care of someone else if you can.
yeah, because
we love you.